Welcome to Modern Marketing Messages, the leading podcast discussing the latest and greatest in both online and offline marketing tactics, strategies, and trends. I'm your host, Taylor Karg, marketing content writer at AmericanEagle.com. In today's episode, we're tackling a question every business wants answered. Can cloud infrastructure be flexible, scalable, and cost-efficient? Recorded at the 2024 AmericanEagle.com forum, this session is presented by cloud experts Paul Kocan and Craig Briars. Together, they unravel the complexities of cloud hosting with creative analogies, real-world examples, and actionable strategies that make the cloud both approachable and effective. From enhanced performance to cost savings, you'll discover how to harness the power of cloud infrastructure to meet your unique business needs. Let's get started.
Well, since we have a small, intimate group today, we have a presentation, but very much interested in deviating away from it and make sure that you both get the most value out of this session. We have some else joining. Perfect. So we'll kind of go through a quick agenda, starting with introductions. Paul, if you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Paul Kocan. I'm the VP of Managed Hosting, leading up our hosting and managed services practice here at American Eagle.
And I'm Craig Briars, been at the company for about 13 years. I've been in the industry for about 20 in total, primarily on the solution consulting side. So background in technology, passion for marketing, often working with all different teams to help figure out the right services and solutions, and everyone's successful. So today's content is really around cloud infrastructure hosting. As I mentioned before, though, we can definitely turn this into more of a Q&A type session, solutioning, whatever makes the most sense. We'll start with some initial questions just to get a better feel for kind of your current landscape, although else I know exactly what y'all have in place. Go through the fundamentals of cloud, and then go through some kind of scenarios and examples around costing models, what it looks like between public cloud, private cloud, traditional on-prem. There's a whole bunch of jargon. So we're going to try to demystify all that so it's very clear as to what models might be the best fit for you today versus tomorrow. And of course, answer any questions along the way. All right. So since we can ask a lot of questions and go around the room, let's just start off with just get a sense of familiarity. Does everyone have a kind of foundational understanding of what the difference between hosting is versus managed services versus website support? Or do you kind of view that all as one big package? Just trying to get an understanding of kind of familiarity.
We are currently our website is built through a very old proprietary American Eagle CMS, and we're looking to implement a more composable solution in 2025, starting in 2025. Our front end public websites are built on XM, or are transitioning to XM Cloud now, Sitecore's XM Cloud, and we're kind of as a whole moving toward SaaS solutions that are supported and licensed, things that we can kind of plug in and plug out over time.
Which company are you with?
I work for Joint Commission Resources, which is part of a Joint Commission enterprise.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think this is going to be right up your alley.
So we already covered where your site's hosted. You have kind of a mix of internal infrastructure and different solutions. What we kind of refer to in this session are more, sounds like more traditional hosting, but with a shift towards cloud first strategy. So let's get that one.
I think if I'm not mistaken, we're in AWS. If that sounds familiar.
Correct. Yep. And just help us understand, like, out of today's meeting, what's going to be the most impactful? Like, if you can walk away with a full grasp or better understanding of two different things out of today's session, respective to your role, the kind of your future vision for company, what would be most helpful to learn today?
So there is an internal decision that's been made to, again, host internally. We had the conversation before why we would not use an external source for doing a lot of the maintenance for the website particular, right? It's a pain point right now. We're working with like 3 different vendors at the same time. It's a long process. It just extends timeline for myself and everybody else. So we're just kind of trying to figure out, again, from my perspective, why did we make those decisions and could we move certain pieces of the hosting externally? So
perfect. All right, we're going to definitely cover that. That's good.
And I think it's pretty clear what the technological advantages are for having a SaaS solution with a vendor that manages and has a roadmap and stuff. I think the more difficult part internally is getting people to understand the cost benefit. And sometimes it might end up being a little bit more expensive to license than you were doing it with traditional on-prem hosting. But the benefits of having a SaaS solution that's supported over time, I think that's something I'd like to have a better grasp of.
Excellent. You all just described our entire presentation, sir. So this is perfect. This is best case scenario. Okay. So let's go into just kind of the fundamentals of cloud. And again, knowing that this session was to be more marketing business, Paul one quote, the nice analogy, and kind of put that all into perspective. Paul's a failed professional chef turned infrastructure expert. So he decided to use an analogy that goes to his past.
My wife said, don't quit your day job. Yeah, so I do actually like to cook. And my signature dish is roast duck. Yeah, I make roast duck. I stuff it with apples. I put it on a bed of like those little butt potatoes, roasted. Then I make green beans with it, some almonds, just some of the duck fat, and my salad, Pinot Noir, maybe Chardonnay.
Nice. I go to a restaurant, make dizzy. No problem.
Is that lunch today?
Salad, yeah.
Roast ducks. Yeah. Well, I know we're not here to talk about roast duck. We're here to cook with the eagle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Anyway, so if you are hosting dinner or you are hosting a website, they're very similar, right? So to host dinner, you need a kitchen, right? And that kitchen can't be empty. It's got to have a bunch of stuff in it. You need appliances and cookware and spatulas and all sorts of stuff to make food, right? To host a website, you need a data center, and that data center can't be empty. It's got to have power and air conditioning. It's got to have servers and routers and switches and network cables and internet connectivity and all sorts of things. It's not just enough to have the equipment. You have to have designs, right? You have to be able to design a website where you have the internet talking to the firewall, talking to the CMS servers, talking to the database, and all it has authentication and security badges. Those are your infrastructure designs, which are equivalent to, recipes, right? If you want to make that roast duck, you got to have a recipe. You got to know how long to cook it. You got to know what kind of ingredients to buy it. Then you go right into the ingredients. So you need duck, you need green peppers, you need apples, etc. Well, when you're doing your website, you need software and tools. You're doing Sitecore, you need to have Sitecore. You need to have the tools to monitor. You need to have the tools to deploy content to it, etc. Then, of course, you need people who know how to cook. My father, who burns cereal, he can't cook. He's a nice guy, real smart, but he doesn't know cooking. Some people don't know technology. It's just not their wheelhouse. So you need chefs are the equivalent to the IT engineers. Then you need, you have to worry about safety, right? You can't have your kitchen burning down or poisoning your guests or whatever, right? So if you're building your own restaurant or whatever, you would need to have health inspections, you need fire extinguishers, etc. And when you're in a data center, guess what? There's fires, there's bad guys, there's data loss, data corruption. You got to protect your customers' data, its availability, its integrity. And why would you trust? You need third-party validation that you're compliant with regulations, especially if you do payment processing. You have to have PCI DSS certification, which you will have. And then when you have your meals, right, you got to, like we were saying, doing deployments, configuring the website. It's just the ongoing work, the day-to-day operations of websites, like the day-to-day operations of Weber operations company. And then you have to deal with incidents, right? In IT, you have regions that go down and circuits that break and underwater cables that get caught and all sorts of things that you have to respond to. Instances become unhealthy and need maintenance. When you're in a restaurant, you need to wash the pots and pans and deal with spills. And if somebody's steak isn't cooked right, you got to refire it, etc. So that's your day-to-day hosting operations, right? So whether you're traditional, you're self-managed, like you were saying, or you're on the cloud, you still lead on that stuff. It's just different, right? So the cloud is like like, think about if you had your traditional IT where you're building your own data centers and your engineers are that'd be like a unique mom and pop restaurant. It could be giant, it could be great, it could be big. But if you go to the cloud, it's kind of like going to a large chain where you're renting a kitchen and it's always the same no matter what kitchen you're in. And the ingredients are all there. It's fully stocked, but it's their bespoke standard ingredients. So when you go to, let's say, the public cloud like AWS, like you were saying, you go to Microsoft, so that's Amazon's data center, Amazon's kitchen, or you go to Azure, which is Microsoft's kitchen. It's all their rated stuff. It might not be the best stuff, but it all works, and there's lots of it. You don't run out. But they pay you they charge you for everything. So you want to use a spoon for 15 minutes, you got to pay for 15 minutes of spoon. Everything you use that consume, you have to pay for it down by the minute, right? But you still need the skill sets. You still need the people. It's just different skill sets. It can be a lot easier, but it's also more specialized. Cloud engineers tend to be a different skill set than your regular traditional IT. It's something they have to upskill and learn. They have to get Azure certified or AWS certified or Google Cloud certified. So you can do that internally with your own staff, but many people are finding that it's actually more cost effective to go with partners because you get a scale. It's easy. You can manage a lot more stuff in the cloud with fewer people or with the same amount of people. And the operating models are starting to see that, well, I could hire 12 people to do 24/7, 365, or it's all in AWS or it's all in Azure. I could just hire a company with Azure skills that can respond as needed and have some customization. That's where you can get the managed services. Let's see. I think we covered everything there, right? Craig, anything you want to add to this?
No. Any questions so far? Again, we'll keep this kind of interactive. Perfect. So which model is best, right? And the terminology or traditional hosting, what we want to do is kind of say, there's no exact answer, right? So it's very much going to be situation based and there's always nuances to it all. So don't take this as black and white, but typically traditional hosting is more common when you either have an existing on-premise infrastructure that you've invested in over the years, your company has it and self-manages and self-hosts, or that you have an established partner who has, historically managed that environment for you all. Oftentimes, if you're on an older technology stack, right? Sometimes a decade ago, you had to have a certain kind of hosting environment based on which technology you use, right? There wasn't necessarily freedom of choice. There was flexibility within a framework is kind of how I would define it. There's only so many good options out there. That has changed immensely over the years. If you have very specialized requirements, Paul mentioned PCI compliance for credit cards. If you're regulated, you deal with HIPAA data, PII data. There's every acronym you could think of. There are so many different certifications and mandates out there. Some of them will dictate actually where you can or cannot host. And depending on your choice, it adds additional layers of complexity, overhead, and cost, and things to concern yourself with. Again, if you have internal systems, so let's say there's an e-commerce website and it integrates with your internal ERP or CRM, and it's on some legacy old system that somebody built 10, 15 years ago that's not going to be replaced, it's not going anywhere, it just sits in the closet and it's there, right? You may have to build your model around those pieces which aren't changing because they lack the flexibility to be migrated or integrated with. At the end of the day, though, I think the thing that's most true here is if you have a requirement to have full control, whether through a partner or through your internal team, typically that traditional hosting model affords you that.
Right. Let me give you a couple examples that I really looked to where the traditional hosting is just what they had to do. So I worked for a managed infrastructure for a large online retail broker dealer, and their order management system, for online trading, their order management system was written in 32-bit C++. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but I can just tell you, you cannot run 32-bit C++ on anything in the cloud. It's a code that doesn't work in the cloud. So they were kind of, until they rewrite their whole, cash register, completely fix that money, they're stuck in cloud. Another one, I worked for a software as a service provider, very internet heavy, had a lot of auto insurance customers, large auto insurance customers, that we stored their data. They wanted data residency. They don't want their data in some cloud that we don't have control over. They want their data in a place where they can hold us contractually accountable for that data safety and integrity, and we can't outsource it to a cloud provider. But those are some examples of real limitations where you just clog system down and now should.
And kind of becoming obvious, but on the cloud side, right? So it's more common or probably a better fit when any or all of these statements apply. You need flexibility with a wide array of cloud services. And just to put a deeper point at our emphasis on cloud services, we're not just talking about servers. Azure and AWS have things, API functions where you can build APIs in the cloud. AI, for example, right? They have AI language models now that you can tap into through their cloud offering. Search, right? That they're really building out this to become not only an infrastructure that can host applications, but also tools and services that you can use within your application, which historically had only been provided by like your CMS providers or your commerce providers and the platform providers. That line is kind of getting blurred a little bit every year you go forward.
Yeah, I would say, just an example, the cost effective and the scalability, the flexibility. So one of our large customers reach out to us yesterday that we manage their Azure infrastructure. And they say, hey, we're having an announcement tomorrow. Or tonight. We're having an announcement tonight. At 5 o'clock, it's going to be, we are expecting traffic to go way up. What can we do? So we said, okay, put a change in 5 o'clock. We tripled their capacity for their web servers. They had the announcement, traffic went way up. And then when it went down, we just retracked it. Now they don't have to pay for they don't have to buy all the servers and pay for it forever. To pay for it for 24 hours. So that's like the scalability and the flexibility in all this here.
And it can be more cost effective in the sense of you're only paying for what you need. Now, depending on what your needs are and how variable and ever changing they are, it may not be cost effective compared to other models, but it does give you cost control where you can determine how much capacity to add. Right, so it's kind of paying for that convenience of having scalability is the way to kind of think of it. So let's kind of go into some more real world examples. I think this is going to be helpful to kind of demystify all the different models. So bear with me for a second and start with just kind of a lay of the land. If we think of what you need in your tech stack, right? Think of it as a pyramid. At the bottom here, this is your infrastructure, servers, and network equipment and all those different things, right? So we've been focusing on this bottom tier right here, which is your infrastructure, but then also the services that go along with it. When I say services, I'm referring to 24/7 monitoring, right? The site's down, someone proactively jumping in to address it. People who are in charge of putting on patches and updates into SQL or to Windows Server or whatever your different software is on servers itself, right? Typically things that marketing and business should never have to concern themselves with nor get involved with. Oftentimes, they present problems when your foundation has some cracks or some issues or is overly complicated, where because of problems here, you can't do your job here, right? Because you're focusing on things below you, which are distraction, cause numerous problems, which Allison, I'm sure you could write a book at this point about all of those things, all right? At the middle layer, these are the things that sit on top of your application. So this would be your site core. This would be your Kentacode, your Sitefinity, your WordPress. These are your different tools, whether it's a CMS, a commerce application. They can also extend beyond that to CRM and other business tools that are part of your overall ecosystem. And then on the flip side, the support of those platforms, right? Who's going to help you with day-to-day updates on the website if you're doing it internally? Upgrades to the software, patches, you want to build a new widget, a new feature, right? And you're all familiar with that. We're working in American Eagle, right? That's typically what we're providing either reactively or proactively, depending on what our ongoing partnership looks like. But all that to say is, if this structure is in a good place, business and marketing can do the job, right? I don't have to worry about it. So let's kind of go see how this triangle shifts around in terms of area of responsibility based on the different models of cloud, SaaS, PaaS, and all the other fun stuff. So we'll start with kind of the traditional one. And I want to use this as an example of if American Eagle is providing hosting and managing it for you all, or else in your case, if your company has their own hosting internal team and they self-manage it, right? that foundation and structure lies within one party's responsibility in terms of what you have to care about, right? You deal with one contact that handles all of this. You can bring in whatever technology stack you want, Contigo, Sitecore, et cetera, right? You have freedom of choice. You can pick who you work with on the platform and support, whether in-house or the partner. That partner could be the same one who manages your infrastructure, as in the case of American Eagle, right? They handle things like CMS version upgrades, development, et cetera. But again, your focus is still the top of the pyramid, right? The benefit of this model is there's full control and access, whether with your team or if you want to offload that to a partner like American Eagle or any other company that's out there that does those services. You don't have any limitations of, what type of hardware services, right? This is designed to spec for your needs specifically. It gives you freedom of choice. So that's kind of the base model. Now, historically, this was like the only model before cloud came on the scene, so to speak. Now let's talk about what we refer to as PaaS, or platform provided. So XM Cloud is going to be a direct example of that. We actually have Sitecore as the logo here. This is a scenario where the hosting infrastructure, so in this case Azure, is actually provisioned and provided and managed by the same company that provides your CMS. Right, it's a bundle package. Behind the scenes, all it is Azure and Sitecore's flavor of Azure. It's a limited set of services that they've tailored to be adaptable to Sitecore's ecosystem and their tech stack. So you don't necessarily have full access to everything that Azure can provide. It's just their flavor of it, right? Now, there's an interesting gap that is introduced because even though Sitecore is providing your CMS stack and your hosting and infrastructure, when it comes to things that are critical at that foundation, 24/7 monitoring, SLA, support, if there's a problem in the actual website itself, not within Azure, Sitecore doesn't provide the coverage. So now you're left with a gap to truly have your foundation of that pyramid covered. So how's that gap solved for? Well, if you have internal team members that like being on call 24/7 and have the skill sets to oversee the health and stability of the site and react at a moment's notice, you can manage that in-house. More often, our customers will work with a partner, American Eagle or otherwise, to handle that. What typically makes the most sense is whoever manages or helps with your day-to-day support of the website, aka Sitecore in this case, owns this, right? I call it the one throat to choke model, right? If you have a problem with the website, you just call that partner and they will figure it out regardless of whose responsibility it is.
Just maybe to add to that, because this triangle can get multiplied and bigger, because let's say you go to XM Cloud, right? Well, that's your back end. You still need a front end. So you're probably going to be putting another PaaS out there to be your front end. Now you have two. How do you know which problem is what?
Right, because if you're using Vercel or more out there, some of the other solutions out there for front end delivery, CDNs. This is not a one-dimensional triangle in reality, right? There's could be multiple layers and offshoots of it.
Any integrations you have with other providers had to be managed, right?
And it's multiplied even further because we're e-commerce, right? So we also have a commerce tool, we also have a payment processor, we also have taxation, and we also yes.
Yeah, it can get complicated very fast.
Yes.
But to Yale's point, it can get complicated very fast for reasons that shouldn't make it complicated, right? It's more just decisions that were made outside of your control that have introduced complication, right? So this model is, to your point, provides convenience in the sense that you don't have to go get your own subscription for Azure, right? You don't have to worry about paying someone to set it up and do all those configurations. Comes pre-bundled with Sitecore, right? They oversee certain things on the, if you think of a RACI chart, they have certain things, and then you work with a different partner to handle the other. You're paying a premium for it, right? You could achieve that exact setup in Azure on your own, and over time, it'd probably be more cost effective. But this is kind of the quick to market, not have to worry about it, just a convenience model. It's kind of the best way to think of it. Any questions on this one before I move on?
So using the same people who do this to manage all those different triangles can make it easier for you. That's one way to reduce the complexity.
Right. If possible, right? Sometimes you have very specialized tools out there where you have to use certain partners. So That's where, thinking of kind of all of these angles in the solution design, not just for how we're going to architect the application, but who's going to own what and support it. A lot of times those are kind of thought about after the fact, and then you don't have to figure it out until you encounter kind of your first critical issue, and then you're like, all right, what do we do now? Now, let's go into SaaS. SaaS is similar to the previous model, but there's some nuances that are different. So an example of a SaaS platform might be like Shopify or BigCommerce. There's a couple CMSs out there that are SaaS as well, although it's not super popular because they're rigid. But SaaS is bundling software, hosting and infrastructure, monitoring, mission critical support all together. Just one fee. You're paying that monthly fee or annual fee, and it all comes together. The reason why they can make that offering, though, is because their product is black box. What does that mean? There are certain things and limitations to what you can extend and build and customize within that product. Because if it lets you do whatever you want, there's no way that they could provide all that support in a repeatable, scalable model, because every site and every source code and every line of code is going to be different from every site. They can't scale, right? And in the SaaS model, they're all about volume, repeatability, and scale. So the trade-off here is there's an extreme convenience by having everything provided at a set fee, but it comes with possibly the limitation of a CMS or commerce solution or CRM that might not exactly meet your requirements. And then you're going to have to go off and figure out ways to fill those gaps. So you're plugging some holes that sit outside of this ecosystem. So that's what we kind of have to think about overall, factoring in this plus all the different solving for gaps, like what truly is the benefit? And we always recommend we'll show a comparison here to help kind of see the advantages from a financial perspective across these different models.
Yeah, I think with the SaaS sort of thing you should look out for is that it should include your upgrades, right? You shouldn't have to pay extra for your upgrades when you do SaaS. That's one of its benefits, because upgrades could be disruptive and expensive. So
yep. And on that point too, an advantage of SaaS that doesn't come with any of the other models, right, that we're talking about, feature additions. They have a roadmap for their product with defined features and enhancements that are coming available, in the months, weeks, and quarters to come. In any other model where you have your own software, you're implementing it, you're basically paying for your own roadmap. You create features based on what the business needs. So again, there's some trade-offs and perhaps benefits there. All right. So what we want to do is kind of a financial model that compares at a high level kind of what the overall cost impacts could be in an apples to apples scenario. And again, there are many other variables and things that plug into this, but we tried to be as apples to apples as possible here. So this use case is a healthcare customer, multiple websites that receives, I believe, 1.2 million page views per month, which we would consider, medium-ish large. They do not want to manage anything with hosting or infrastructure or any of that. They do not want to be in the business of IT support. They have the internal resources, but they are in charge of managing their internal infrastructure, like medical systems and other things that are not in the MarTech stack, right? So they want marketing to just be self-contained and out of IT's hair. Marketing loves that because they won't have to depend on IT and get them involved every time there's a problem, right? So that's kind of the setup here. And these are real numbers to call it out. In this case, if they want a public cloud, so public cloud being Azure or AWS or Google's solution, their infrastructure costs about $5,900 a month. Keep in mind, cloud is based on consumption. To Paul's earlier point, if you use a spoon for 15 minutes, you're paying for that spoon. This will vary, plus or minus 10, 15% in any given month. If you have traffic spikes or other things that are very different, the costs can go up from there. That's typically your base. The CMS that they've selected that are going to purchase as part of this is a $70,000 fee for the first year, and then a $21,000 fee for each year thereafter for renewal. Because IT doesn't want to be involved in managing and supporting the hosting, they're going to contract with a company, may or may not be American Eagle, to handle the managed services. So 24/7 support, critical response, upkeep, security patches, monitoring, all that fun stuff we talked about. So there's a $1,300 a month cost for that. So over a 5-year period, their total, operational expenses amount to about $718,000, give or take, right? That's not including project implementation, ongoing website support, or anything else. That's all off to the side. That's just like your core operational expenses to build, go back to Paul's analogy, the kitchen, and to run that kitchen. On the private cloud side, so this is an example, the American Eagle was to provide the equivalent offering in our data center, kind of cut right to the chase. We use the same variables where applicable, and that one's $535,000, right? We refer to that as private cloud. And again, very hands-off, white glove for your all IT team. Platform provided clouds. This would be the Sitecore XM model. This is not Sitecore numbers. This is a different platform that provides basically the same model. It's just a different CMS. This is a fixed amount that bundles infrastructure, hosting, CMS, and those are together. It's $120,000 a year. But remember what we talked about is there's still a gap where 24/7 monitoring, managed services isn't provided by Sitecore. So they still have this expense here for someone to keep an eye on things and respond in times of need. Because in this case, their IT doesn't want to be involved, so you need to offer that to a partner. Overall cost there, about $730,000. And then, of course, if it's on-premise, like in your own data center, we can speculate what that's going to be, right? And that's, it can be very cost-effective if you've already invested in that infrastructure and you have a team, right? That is obviously the most economical if you could fit within that box. And that's part of your business strategy, is keep it within that box. That is becoming very, very uncommon these days. So what do we learn from this? There's obvious cost differences between these models, but they each come with trade-offs, right? So you can't always just focus and zoom in like, oh, this is $200,000 cheaper. Let's go with that. Perhaps that's the case, but we have to think about what's truly best for your business, right? In your scenario. I'm gonna pause there. Any questions, or if you want to apply this to kind of your all's scenarios and kind of get some more direct examples out that might be applicable to what the projects you're looking at or your current use cases.
Yeah, I think in our situation it's unique because we have our marketing arm is a little bit separate from where e-commerce lies. So we do have a front end need for a CMS, right? Right now it's iDev, and iDev is bespoke is the nice way to put it, but ours has been built into this little Frankenstein's monster over 12 years.
Right.
So the XM Cloud decision has kind of been made for us on our side already. Our marketing team is going to upgrade to that. They're going to use it. What we want to try to do is realize more value out of the thing they're already paying for by having them host our front end pages. So then from there, how do we compose a tech stack to handle the financial parts of it, to handle the e-commerce parts of it, right? And that's where we end up in that SaaS or PaaS.
Exactly.
Trying to plug pieces in. Some of those things we already license, like we already have a payment processor, we already have a taxation plugin, we already have and we're going to keep a lot of those things, but finding the commerce piece, I think this is really the only model that would work for us. We're going to end up replacing what iDev does with a lot of different things, but hopefully the functionality and then the support, like the roadmap support, will be better for a lot of those SaaS solutions that we have.
Which commerce solution are you all thinking about using, or haven't you gotten that far yet?
We have a couple that we're looking at. We have kind of a mandate from our IT to use vendors that we've already used before or use technologies that we already licensed. So we already licensed Salesforce for a CRM on the other side of the house.
Okay, so Commerce Cloud.
So they have Commerce Cloud. We already utilize Sitecore for XM Cloud, so we're looking at Order Cloud. Right, so we have a couple of those that we're looking at and exploring.
Right.
We're a B2B business, so trying to focus on past implementations to guide us, but that's we want to move away from having a bespoke solution that we.
So in your scenario, you have this no matter what, right? This is your Sitecore XM Cloud, and then you have a decision. Do you just add a plus sign here and say Order Cloud, right? And it goes there. Or do you have this triangle And then you add another triangle, which is going to a Commerce Cloud, for example, which is going to be the SaaS solution from Salesforce.
But can I just ask what business challenges are you having right now and how do you think that this is going to solve them, or how are they supposed to solve them? Just
I think one of the primary things we're trying to solve for is risk. The risk point. Our version of IDEV has done what it has done for a while, and if IDEV is just a product that's not supported outside of my one developer that works here at American Eagle is very, very good, and he knows how to support my very specific implementation of IDEV. Right, we want to try to reduce that risk point and spread it across.
Absolutely,
that's the primary piece. We have, I think, like $30 million passes through our store every year, and we don't. There's risk in having it all pass through IDEV. The other piece is we have limitations for what our business group can do. IDEV is our reporting tool for finance. It's not very good at it because we kind of built it custom. IDEV does our digital asset management. It's not very good at it, but it right. So like those are pieces.
Decompose it.
Yeah,
you're best of breed, right? Yeah, so for your best of breed approach, which is the right decision, right? Because IDEV served its purpose. It kind of let you adapt and mold your own product.
Correct.
You've learned a lot from it, and now you can make informed decisions as to what's the right tools to kind of separate this out, but do it in a composable way. So makes sense to you. Yeah. And then Alice, the world you're living in.
I know.
You're living here, but it sounds like you've got about 3 or 4 or 5 different vendors that live in the foundation here, right? And an American Eagle sits up here, and then you have Kentico there, and you're up there, but you're having to spend time below. In your all's case, what I would recommend, and give us a conversation about this too, is it might be best to kind of separate this into 2. Marketing side of the house, like so all of these things for the tools that marketing owns, so website, and then leave everything else on AWS with AIT's IT team, right?
Yep.
And just have a split foundation and siloed control so that you're not having to get involved in the mess and have to wait with it.
So one thing that you might want to consider. So first up, can I just to make sure I can tell the exasperation you have? So is your big problem is mostly around time to market, or is it more around the difficulty to navigate the organization, or is it availability, or is it
the last 2, most of them?
Okay, so availability.
Yeah, and then also we have American Eagle on the website side, right? Mm-hmm. You guys give us timelines, and then our internal teams most of the time the problem, and then the internal team works with I assume that they do manage services for us. So again, 2 different outside vendors, our internal team and us. So timing, communication.
You have a dependency on us. We have a dependency on you. We also have a dependency on whoever your managed services partner is. And then your managed services partner has a dependency on AWS and whatever else is there. So it's at this daisy chain of dependencies. And
so you probably need, even if they need to stay in AWS, would be some kind of co-managed operating model that allows them to have the control they need, but allows you to get the response you need.
I do understand better now why they're staying with their own, like keeping it behind, our walls. I understand. You have a lot of custom built tools. There's a lot of our transportation management system is completely custom built on a very old platform. We do have some newer tools that they brought in. So again, the business still relies on that really old tool. So I understand why they're staying there. It just complicates things for us.
And I think Paul's point is they could have that, but just provide access to the website piece to another partner who owns that piece, and everyone can play in the sandbox together nicely.
Exactly. So when you're in the cloud, if they're in the AWS, you can take certain resources, make, let's say, resource groups or subscriptions, and say, these components can have administrators by, let's just say it's American Eagle or some other, and your internal IT, and then they can see visibility, they can have the governance over what is done, so it will allow everybody to kind of have their cake and eat it too. So that might be a mound in us.
And this might not be super helpful at this stage because you already have a stack and perhaps there's some opportunity to fine tune it. You already made a lot of decisions that you went through this process basically in the last year or so, right? But we put this together kind of help determine which model makes the most sense in generalities. Again, there's always nuances to it all. So I'm going to hit a lot of these points. So we're going to kind of just glance over this one.
I think the reality of it is something you touched on a little bit earlier, which is a lot of decisions have been made for us already, right? And you're trying to find the best possible way to provide the best technology within the guardrails that you have for yourself.
And that's the reality. And that's where, again, not trying to make this solve for more from American Eagle, but we could help. We do this all the time, right? So we've seen them all. We work on all these models. So we can kind of give you the brass tacks of like, here's what you're getting yourself into if you go this direction versus this direction.
I would say that we do manage services and manage hosting out of necessity. If you look at our billboards, it says like web design, but there's so many complexity when you start doing the finger pointing about the hosting and web. What we had to develop web hosting practice that we had doing for almost 30 years, and we're very flexible at helping customers with their operating model and finding something customized that just allows everybody to get what they want. The business gets the control they want, the visibility. The marketing team or whatever gets the time to market and the flexibility they need, and then we don't get blamed for when the internal IT people do something wrong, right?
So one of the things that they kind of put out as a reason why we're doing is security. So like if our website connects to the back end of like that Subaru data tool. So that was the one thing we've been told as a main reason, so that's the state.
We take security very seriously, and we deal with that a lot. We're in some of the most highly regulated companies, and we have all of our employees have background checks, and we make sure we work with compliance and security.
And I'll say this, though. Oftentimes, security or its complex are excuses offered by IT as to why whatever they're recommending or saying is the mandate needs to be, and people just take it at face value. It's like, oh, it's more secure. That's where, again, we can help them being, okay, we can live in a world where there's perhaps a better setup that is equally, if not more secure, right? So there never will be a trade-off on security. That's first and foremost. So sometimes it's helpful to kind of push back and question that because it might be
I just want to say, being a web hosting company, we deal every day with hackers who are trying to get people. That's a Tuesday for us. A lot of companies, that's once in every 5 years.
I think for what we're trying to do by value realization is like a cool consulting buzzword, buzz term, but what we're trying to do really is reduce cost of, like whenever there's an accessibility initiative or a GDPR initiative or whatever the initiative is, right now we're paying for that work to be done twice, or we're spending staff hours internally on this side and then paying American Eagle over here on this side just to keep our two front-facing web pages alive.
You bear the burden of all product development. You create your own product.
And then all of the authentication, all the authentication walls, the data integrations, all that stuff has to be updated every time we do one of these things to try and keep that in line. So we're trying to, at least the front-facing CMS, get them in line and then plug the other pieces in behind it to do the work of selling things and shipping.
And the nice thing is the technology is there where you can do it, right? Composable didn't exist in the way it does now 5 years ago. Right. Your timing is exceptional.
Kind of blew apart our understanding of it when we went to Symposium 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it's not just fluff. It's real. Right? We have the stuff out in the wild that's doing this. So I know we're at time. This has been great. Thank you all for coming to the VIP exclusive session. We appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to stop by or reach out to your account exec or anybody else. We're here to help.
Thanks for listening to Modern Marketing Messages. Check out below for more information about this episode and AmericanEagle.com's digital marketing services. This podcast is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. I'm Taylor Karg, and we'll be back with another Modern Marketing Message.